Hello and welcome to this month's Cision webinar, Building a Tech Brand with Earned Media. My name is Barnaby Barron. I'm one of Cision's Senior Client Insight Managers, and I'll be your moderator today as we explore this topic over the next 45 minutes or so. As we saw in CES 2018, the annual electronics show and media spectacle, staying ahead in tech PR requires constant innovation. Today's breakthroughs are tomorrow's old news, and it can be tough for companies to convey the benefits of their technologies to their key target audiences. But there are also big opportunities for brands that can communicate their propositions in ways that excite and inspire their stakeholders. And this Cision webinar will help you do exactly that. Topics to be discussed include what distinguishes technology communications from other sectors, how tech media audiences are changing in 2018, and building successful integrated campaigns for tech brands. We've got a lot to cover today, so it's my pleasure to introduce our two speakers from two different sides of the media. We have Marc Chacksfield and Steph MacLeod. They will each present their views on the topic, and then we'll open things up to a live Q&A discussion. Marc is TechRadar's interim global editor-in-chief. He will go first and outline how the title has established itself as a leading tech brand over the past 10 years. Then he'll reveal what titles like TechRadar are looking for in a PR pitch. Steph is a director at Kaizo, the independent PR and digital comms agency. She'll highlight what sets tech PR apart from other sectors and give her top tips for building a successful tech brand with earned media. After the presentations, we will have a Q&A session. So please do take the chance to send in your questions for Marc and Steph using the chat box to the right of your screen. But that's enough from me. Marc, please go ahead and start.
Thank you, Barney. Like Barney said, I am Marc Chacksfield. I'm the interim global editor-in-chief of TechRadar. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a positive history of how we got to become the UK's #1 technology website. There I am, right there. So from 0 to 30 million users in 10 years, how we built TechRadar. Like I said, I'm a founding member of TechRadar. I started off as a news writer for the site. I've actually got a bit of background in movie writing, movie review writing, and started writing about technology because of my love of movies. I also moved from magazines onto online in 2008, and that's when I started on TechRadar. Before I came on board, TechRadar was two sites. It was Tech Tested and Tech Daily. They decided to amalgamate both of them, which was a really good decision. TechRadar today is the #1 technology website in the UK, and it's in the top 10 in the US for technology websites. We've just slipped into the top 100 media sites in the US as well, according to SimilarWeb, which is incredibly exciting news. We have 19 journalists across the UK, America, and Australia, and have branched out to the UAE and India as well. But at the beginning, there were just 6 of us, and if you can see on the slide on the left, that's how TechRadar used to look. It brings back a lot of fond memories there. So there has been a lot of change in those 10 years, as the slide shows. So on the left, you see some articles, all you need to know about this new technology called Blu-ray. Apple to launch a 3G iPhone, question mark. They did indeed.
I think I launched that.
Oh, yeah. Facebook gets in the way of teens' homework. It's probably now getting in the way of its parents' stuff rather than the teens, given that everyone's on Snapchat. And there's some stats at the bottom there. So we launched in 2008. We launched officially in the US 4 years later, but we were obviously a global site from there on in. But we officially had a US team in 2012. We hit 1 billion page views in 2013. And my favorite stat at the moment is that we're on 30 million global unique users a month. So how did we get there? We went from being a simple news site that offered a sparse amount of tips and tricks to what we are now, which offers in-depth buying guides, massive reviews, and long-read features that hopefully offer a full view of the breadth of technology and what's going on today. The main change for us I'm going to flip onto this in a minute. But the main change for us was going from a general news site to what we are now, and that's a site that helps people buy what they want. So how do we do that? So a brand is always, I think, built on its content, and that's exactly what we tried to do. We tried to get as many new and interesting stories on TechRadar, even when we were just a startup. So we would pick up the phone and get as many exclusives as possible. That doesn't mean an entirely exclusive story. It could just be an exclusive line for that story or a quote from somebody. And they were always really beneficial for us when just trying to get yourself up from the breadth of tech news that was around at the moment. When you're talking about the Gizmodos and the Engadgets of the world, which were huge at the time and still are. We were trying to compete against them. And to put it into context, if we got 50 hits on our story at the beginning, we were absolutely loving it. If we got 100 hits, we were backslapping in the pub. So it was that small for us at the beginning, and obviously that's grown massively since then. But we really do think the way we got ahead of the game was to get a few exclusives now and again. Go big or go home. That's essentially how we did our phone reviews. So Gareth Beavis, who is the joint editor-in-chief with me at the moment, he started on the site in the same week as me. So that's quite exciting. We're both still on this site as well, which is amazing. He loves phones, loves them more than anybody else could possibly love phones. Will bore you to death about phone. But his reviews are probably the most in-depth on the web, and they were definitely the most in-depth on the web when we first started. So you're looking at 8, 10, 12, 15,000 words for these phone reviews. And that is what people really want sometimes. We do have truncated versions as well, but it is that kind of size that people want. And also embracing the rumor mill. That was one way we started things. So the iPhone 10, as you see there, doesn't just appear. Obviously, Apple would love it just to appear, but there's rumors that happen from when the iPhone 6 launched, iPhone 7 launched. So we start with the rumor mill. We gather all the rumors up. We say if we think they're pretty crap or they're not crap, but then we generate this kind of buzz that goes through, and that helps us get to the top of Google as well, which is a big part of how TechRadar got to where it is today. So another side of it is find ways to get your articles read. At the time, when we were first starting out in 2008, I'm not sure if many people remember a site called Dig, but Dig was essentially a bit of a Reddit where it would find interesting articles on the web, and the most popular articles would get huge amount of traffic, inbound traffic to the articles. For us, Dig was almost like we had to hold down the computers when we got dug. It was a huge thing for us because we were a small site, and it meant that we were getting more traffic to a certain page than we ever got in our entire lives. So it was just scary. But we started to write compelling content that Dig would pick up. Dig, unfortunately, died a death, really. I think it is still around, but it changed its way of thinking. And it wasn't really beneficial for us or the readers, and it pretty much disappeared. But what replaced it was something like Reddit. And we don't use Reddit as effectively, but if Reddit or that community, and it is all about communities, take your articles, and you see the huge influx of hopefully new people that have never read your site before. But that's one way to get your articles read, compelling headlines that will go onto Dig or Reddit. SEO, I'm not going to lie about how much we have. SEO has helped us on TechRadar. We do have a huge amount of homepage traffic, people that come direct to the site, but SEO was a dirty word when we were first starting because nobody really knew what it was. The way we saw it was getting your copy seen. So I was a magazine writer before going on the web, and I used to go into WH Smith's and take my magazine and put it to the front of the thing so people would actually see it. And that's essentially how we saw doing the way that we do the article headlines for TechRadar. But the biggest thing about this is you can't cheat the system. So you can do your articles so that it's for what people search for, but that's obvious. You want to get your stuff read, so you do your articles for what people search for. Well, if they click through and you've just got clickbait or nothing compelling to read, then they will get put off your site. So you've got to have both of you've got to have the actual depth of the article, and you've got to be able to see on Google as well. And it's not just about the way you write the article, it's all about the amount of people that link to it and things like that. And we have a huge amount of audience that way. Have an opinion, I think that says on that side. So have an opinion was, again, that was one way to get new people to the site. So it's not just writing a news story, it's writing an opinion about that news story and having your own voice, really. And we started to get mini stars out of that, really, from our audience. So just a couple of other things about how we think TechRadar got to where it is today is understanding what the reader wants. So respecting your audience. That's a big thing, like I just said about the SEO, that a lot of people try and use SEO and it's not great because it's thin content and it's if it hasn't got enough links in there, hasn't got enough actual stuff that people want to read, they just won't click back onto that thing. So trust, authority. I do think TechRadar, with its in-depth reviews, its buying guides, we're not scared to give a 1-2 star review if it's needed. That builds authority because people know you're not just pandering to the companies that make this stuff, and we have to make sure that happens, and we instill that into our writers from day one, really, and write things that people will want to read. And that was a little bit of an ego thing for me, that some of the things I thought people would want to read weren't getting read, and it's a little bit disheartening to see your stuff not getting read. But then you start to find angles that people do want to read about these things, and if they like your stuff, they'll start reading. And the other thing, I think it kind of goes under this, is understanding what the reader wants. Embrace change, but not too much. So we've seen a huge amount of, I hate the word pivoting, but I thought I'd put it in there, pivoting from different media organizations that go all in on video or all in on social. We never really did that. Obviously, search is a big thing for us, but it's a big thing for everybody as a backbone. We have video, and we have some great video team. We haven't gone all in on video. We haven't gone all in the social, but we've got a good social following. And it's about not jumping what you think is going to be the next big thing, but sticking to what you're good at, and understanding that if it is good enough, it will survive most things. And that's what we've seen so far. We've seen ourselves blossom and continue. But you do have to embrace change. So continuing the consumer journey for us, one way we've embraced change is with the e-com side of things. So where it used to be that we would throw people away from our site over to where to buy this stuff, we kind of do that, but we also have links to the best prices for the product that we're doing at the moment. Obviously, that doesn't affect the decision on anything that we write about in buying guides or anything, but it helps with the consumer journey, so they'll know that they can get hopefully the best prices, and sometimes they get exclusive prices from us as well for the products that we're writing about. So that's how we've embraced change, but that's part of the we call it the funnel. It's part of the funnel for the consumer. And we did find that we weren't continuing that journey enough, and actually with the e-com stuff, we started to do that a little bit more. So going from how we became big-ish to how to pitch to TechRadar. Get to know us. I think that's the biggest thing from my point of view. Understand our beats. So even though you're pitching to TechRadar, you're probably going to be pitching to an individual. You could also obviously pitch to news@techradar.com, which is our kind of that will accompany everybody. But if you know the people that you're pitching to, it's a lot easier to get your press releases read, I guess. And that's the thing, that we will read press releases, but you've got to read our stuff as well. And I think that's a key thing, that if you pitch to me and it feels like you don't know me at all, that's fine. But if you haven't read any of my stuff as well, and you don't know what I like to write about, then I don't think that pitch will go anywhere really. So that's the key: make your pitch relevant to TechRadar. So that's also relevant to TechRadar and its audience. Have a look, and if we've never written about this stuff before, it might be because it's brand new, and it could be something that we're excited about to write about. But it's probably because we haven't written about it because it's not part of our beat. It's as simple as that. So your emails are more chance of being read if we know who you are. That's just a given, really. Like I say at the bottom, the funny thing is we do prefer getting emails. I don't mind a phone call now and again, but emails are the best way to kind of, because that's where I'm constantly going back to, is my Gmail account to see what's happening. Like I said, I get over 150 emails a day. That's not just PR pitches, but I get lots and lots of emails. I can only reply to a fraction. I will try and read as best I can, but if I haven't replied to you to say no thank you, it usually is a no thank you anyway, and that's a really harsh way of saying it. But unfortunately, we do have people that keep chasing us, going, "Have you read this? Have you read this? Have you read this?" We're so busy sometimes that sometimes politeness goes out the window, and it's unfortunate. But we do try to reply to who we can. So have a really good, enticing pitch within the actual subject line, because sometimes that's as far as you'll go with some of our emails. So yeah, if you phone, there's a good chance we're midway through a story, so that means we will ask you to email. If we know you though, you probably won't get as short a shrift from us. And the only reason you get short shrift, and we're never nasty or anything like that, is because we're so busy. It's as simple as that. We've got so much stuff we need to get up on the site. And getting stuff up on the site now for me and for my colleague Gareth is only 10% of our actual job as well when it comes to this stuff. And yeah, only follow up if you really think there's a story we should be covering, and it's strange we haven't replied. And that's a genuine as well. If you really think this is something we'd be interested in, then do keep pestering us, because it might be that it's just been lost within the deluge of other emails. Some more things. Make it personal. So again, if you are emailing me and 100 other people, which no doubt you will be, because you can't just purely email me, try and feel like the pitch is just for me, or just get something that's a little bit more that will grab my eye. It's pretty easy to see a cut and paste email now, and usually, unless it's a really enticing press release, we won't reply to it really. Offering exclusive, this is absolute key for us really. Whether it's a bespoke quote, I know sometimes you have people quoted within the press releases, that's fine. We don't usually use quotes that are within a press release. We might ask for a follow-up quote, something like that. But yeah, getting something really personal does make a difference. So either it's face-to-face time with somebody, going to an event, that's absolutely key for some of this as well. I know it's the second step to pitching. But yeah, speaking to somebody about it, even if it's just off the record so we know a bit more background, that will really help us kind of form our article. Pitch yourself. I think this is always an interesting one, because we read our articles back to ourselves as well. We buddy sub within the team before it goes live, and I think that's what everyone should be doing as well from a PR point of view. So read your pitch and pretend you're the journalist. Would you reply to that pitch, and what are you really offering that journalist within it? I think that's really hopefully helpful advice. And ask yourself, what value am I offering? Would this be something TechRadar reader would be interested in? And what's the benefit of having this pitch on TechRadar? And that's fairly obvious sometimes. The benefit for you is obviously your company and the company you're representing will be on TechRadar. But what is the benefit of having TechRadar's brand and identity on there? I think that might be it, actually. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Great.
Barney.
Thank you, Mark. Some really interesting points. Some things to think about. I will take a second to kindly remind everyone, if they do have any questions, we will be finishing with a Q&A session. So please do take the chance to send those questions in using the chat box to the right of your screen. But with that said, I'll pass on to Steph.
Yeah, hi. So I am now going to talk about how to build technology brands with earned media. And what I'm going to cover is really try and define what kind of technology we're talking about, what the main challenges are. We're going to look at some examples of what successful firms do and do well, and then try and tackle some of the myths that we think need busting, and hopefully come up with some tips at the end about what you can do to do that. So just as means of, by way of introduction, very quickly, I've been in technology PR for about 20 years. I've cut my teeth PRing compact servers for my sins. I then, went on to launch a little social network called Facebook in the UK. I worked on Apple's PR in the UK for many years, pre and post iPhone, which was the crazy times. Through to today, where at Kaizo, our technology portfolio is quite broad and really stretches from B2B brands who operate, in everything from AI, data analytics, cloud, security, through to consumer tech, where it's all about, the latest robots, audio, everything from headphones to speakers, and drones. So it's a very broad area. I mean, to try and define what technology means as far as branding goes is very broad. But really today, I'm going to mostly focus on B2B tech, because that is definitely, I think, the most challenging, especially when it comes to targeting the right influencers, crafting the right stories, and definitely in terms of measurement. And by B2B tech, I mean, that's everything, as I really just referenced, everything from AI through to supercomputing, omni-channel. So what's your experience when you go into a store now? How do mobile payments work? Everything's got a direct impact really on how you live and work. But I just thought we'd kind of take a step back from all these lovely technical terms before we delve into them, and look at a broader definition of technology. And I actually found a lovely, thought-provoking quote from a computer scientist called Alan Kay. And he says that technology is anything that wasn't around when you were born. Now, for me, that is particularly depressing, because when I was born, technology was old-style phones and black and white TVs. So really, I've had a blast in the last 20 years. And what's even more depressing, when I was doing my research, I found this really cool little tool. It's US data, so be aware. But I found it on the Washington Post site, and it went up sort of towards the end of last year. And it focuses on, you basically put in what year you were born. And it does go back to the year I was born. But as we've already established, there wasn't much going on technology-wise. So I decided to put in the year that my PR career was born, so 1998, which conveniently was 20 years ago. And some of the stats are really quite incredible. You'll see here, 1998, 61% of US households had no internet, and the top website was AOL. Now, what's particularly impressive about this is anybody that was around at that time, the dot-com bubble. I mean, all that investment was going into all these online businesses, and yet 61% of US households had no internet. So it's easy to see how that particular bubble burst. But, coming round to, nearer to now, by the end of 2016, 70% of US households had home broadband, and the top website was, no surprise, Google. So, if you look at this upsurge in technology, it really has changed the global economy, how we live and how we work. And nowhere is that more telling than when you see that the world's 6 richest companies are in technology. And most people will be, hopefully most people on this call will be very familiar with these brands. Apple, Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, Tencent, obviously that's gaming, and Facebook. And again, just to continue my depressing thought, yes, all these companies are indeed younger than me. So if you look at how this, why are these technology giants the richest in the world? Well, it's really, as I said, I mean, they really have fundamentally changed everything from business to government to cities to homes. They all rely on technology now. And behind every smart meter, every online retailer, every banking app, every health tracker, every on-demand online TV provider, there sits a whole lot of infrastructure technology that powers all of these services that we use in life and business every day. And some of these technologies, everything from networking to security, cloud automation, robotics, SaaS systems, they are being used by large and medium enterprises right through to small startups. And it's our role as B2B technology experts to help them build their brands and really make a difference for them and talk about what they enable in life, in business, in government. However, with all these opportunities and excitement, and there is a lot of both often, there comes a range of challenges for any PR professional who's working in this space. Now, I've tried to group these into 5 buckets. I'm sure there are more, and it'd be good to hear everybody's thoughts on this after we've done this part. But if we start off by looking at the customer and prospect audience chains, they are, in terms of B2B tech, phenomenally long and complex. You've often got multiple decision makers within these large enterprises, and everybody through from the CEO, the network manager, it might be the line of business owner, you might be talking to an HR director, and really to try and get a comms program that impacts on all of these different influences in a buying cycle is quite challenging, both in terms of resource and thought. Secondly, it's a complicated landscape in terms of competition. So often you'll see that brands are business partners with other technology brands as part of a mix, but they're also communications competitors. Now, that is often, I mean, it's changed days. You know, it used to be in PR, you wouldn't want to be mentioned alongside a competitor. Now it's like brilliant, it's excellent for analytics. You know, it'll go further. But you know, that kind of complexity of competitive landscape is often hard, especially when you're trying to say something that's different for your primary client and give them a kind of USP and a different voice. Thirdly, you've obviously got, as you've got everywhere, this convergence of media, analysts, and influencers. And again, kind of unlocking these interlinking relationships and how they work can be tough. But I think in terms of, you must really do that in order to engage all of these audiences effectively across all disciplines and channels. And then you've got the fact, which, like it or not, everybody consumes messages like a consumer now. So format, channels, and frequency of news and message and thought really matters. Now, that can really be a challenge when you're dealing with some of these bigger corporates, especially if they've got perhaps a more conservative attitude to communications. You know, trying to move them away from 100-page reports, be it online or not, can be a challenge. And that gets even worse sometimes when you're working in a global structure, because really, to make a brand work, it's got to have regional and local relevance. And it's also got to understand how to communicate within a local environment. So I'm sure there are many people that are listening who regularly have conversations about why it's not a good idea to send out 10-page press releases with loads of technical jargon in them. Sometimes successful, sometimes not, I'm sure. So you can do all you like to try and overcome these challenges, but there is one big disclaimer within B2B tech, and that is that actually you can do what you like, but at the end of the day, business performance counts. A lot of these brands and technology giants run infrastructure and applications that are so critical to how we live, work, and play that they have got to have that trust and have a confidence around them that they're going to be here in 5 years to make sure that you've got that brand halo effect. And without that, to be honest, it doesn't matter what you do. But let's assume that they are doing well, which doesn't always mean profit, by the way, believe it or not. But there are 6 key elements to success that we kind of, at Kaizo, we run through, and we think they're pretty tried and tested. So, and these range from being, generating original thinking, from making sure content's entertaining, it's in the right format, that you're data assisted, you've got a client that wants to do it, and that you're engaging the workforce. So let's have a little bit of a deeper look at opinions. Now, thought leadership is probably the most overused phrase in B2B tech PR ever. To be effective, it needs to be properly insightful or visionary or controversial and ballsy. And to be honest, the best kind of thought leadership is all of these. But very few brands get this right. And that's for a number of reasons. That it can be as simple as the fact they are listed and there are certain things they can't say. It can be they just don't have the appetite for it, or it can just be it doesn't fit with their brand culture. But there are other ways to do it. So if you look at, for example, Mark from Salesforce has done an amazing job in really building thought leadership, not around the technology, although they do that very well, but around more of his CSR programs. So going out on a limb, standing up for gay rights, talking about diversity, owning that space, and really putting a stamp and positioning himself as a real business leader, not just a technology one. So that there's lots of ways to do this, but you need to think creatively about it. Secondly, you need to make technology real. So tempting as it is, as I said, to send out and just talk in acronyms, which very few people actually understand, you've got to really talk about what the technology does. Nobody maybe cares about massive processing power and petabytes of data that sit in a storage box, but maybe they do care that is helping Mercedes win Formula One. Maybe they do care that that's helping to cure what's previously been incurable diseases. So it's about making it real and making applications stand out. Thirdly, it's about making sure that you don't just stick to the written word. There are lots of ways to communicate a story. It's not a case of one size fits all, but it is a case of making sure you're at least thinking about different ways you can show and demonstrate what you're talking about. So whether that be short vox pop videos, whether that be, which hopefully we all do, very short form social content from various pieces of content that we've developed, whether that be thinking about how this story is going to look on broadcast. It's just having the approach and the mindset to really bring it alive. When it comes to data, I feel like we're all, and rightly so, slaves to numbers and analytics these days. But good old Einstein quotes, can't go wrong. Really like this one. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And this is particularly important for us when we're trying to build brands through earned media, because it's been traditionally hard to measure the impact of earned media, especially for B2B, because of these complex buying cycles and audiences. Fair enough, when we do some of our consumer products that we represent, we know if we get it on this morning, we can look at share of search, you see the traffic, links through so that, we've got access to the client back end, you can see the sales, happy days, job done. It doesn't work like that when you're doing a multi-million pound deal with the NHS, unfortunately. So it's about understanding how to use the content and plug it into other parts of the business or other things you're doing to get relevant analytics. But it's also understanding that what's been seen as classic non-measurable media and individual relationships are still critical. Now, I know the guys at Cision are doing some really interesting work around really measuring the impact of that earned media, which I think everybody is, very interested to look at. But it doesn't negate the fact that it's about keeping your eye on the long-term brand value as well as the short-term buzz, I think. And it's understanding that a positive piece in the FT can be worth a million tweets, literally, in terms of that brand value. So it's just about using data and the right content in the right places to get the right data, but not instead of traditional earned and everything that encompasses. And then it's all about attitude and appetite. So you can be up for it. You've got an amazing plan that's covering all bases, but does the brand and the client want it? Do they want to be famous? Is the CEO or whoever you've got as a spokesperson willing to get that 5 a.m. call to get their butt down to Sky News to talk about the latest security breach? If they're not, you're not going to have, you need that level of client engagement and drive and appetite to really get out there. It's all about being first, about being front of foot and on it. And without that energy and commitment, it's a hard job ahead. And then we look at this really big, really untapped resource that a lot of our B2B tech clients have, and that's their employee numbers. If you look at how many people these tech brands employ across the world, it's literally millions and millions. So why aren't we on a more regular basis ensuring that news and stories and anything we're doing to help the brand is properly amplified through that employee base? And again, that's probably about having the right connections internally to mobilize that workforce. But it's also about creating the right kinds of stories and angles that people want to share. So it's a very basic, everybody consumes like a consumer. People are going to share things that make them feel and look good, or that entertain them, or that help educate. So the more we can get that content right, the more it will be shared. And then, probably last but not least, in this small bit, it's about really being agile and cutting through bureaucracy to be fast on your feet, agile in thought and creative, and most of all about being results driven. I think a lot of particularly probably B2B technology campaigns can lack being results driven, and in actual fact it's all about output and outcome far more so than output. And I think you need to get that balance right and figure out how you are helping the business in whatever way, shape or form. So the good news is some brands are doing it brilliantly. You know, some of the examples up there. And why are they doing it brilliantly? Because they are educating, they are entertaining, they are working with influencers, media and non-media, and they are looking to the future. They have a vision of what is to come. And when you work in technology, the future is continually changing and developing, and you are constantly dealing with new developments in technologies. And if you look at, I think I saw a figure yesterday which was quite incredible, and that was that 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years. 90%. And that is only going to increase as AI algorithms start to self-produce that data. I mean, it's really quite incredible. We've then got Gartner, who predicts that AI will be pervasive in every single software-driven product and service by 2020. This is, game-changing stuff. And around this catch-all of AI are all the other issues, like data management, storage, security, to name but a few. So lots going on. So in summary, there are a few myths that we want to burst. First of all, when we're talking about content, everyone, I think they've been saying this since I started out, which was a long time ago, as I keep banging on about, the press release is dead. Well, actually, it isn't dead, but it doesn't need labeling and formatting like a press release. Whether you get your news out as a press release or a blog, it doesn't matter. It's about getting your news out there. So that's what's important there. Secondly, media relations is not dying. Relationships are more important than ever. It can't be dying. There are fewer journalists out there. And it's even more important that us as PR professionals know what makes individual journalists and also publications and publishing houses tick, especially commercially, because that's such an integral part of how that relationship works these days. Then we come on to ego. It's always nice to be nice, and it's profitable to be nice. We've seen quite a lot of rock star CEOs come and go in technology over the years, but ultimately, that's only going to be tolerated and probably quite effectively hidden in the biggest and most successful brands in the world. And then it comes on to social content. I talked a little bit about having appropriate content for every story. And if I hear one more person talk about, oh, we want to do a viral video. Well, videos aren't necessarily viral. In fact, very few videos go viral, and very tweets really trend, if everybody's honest. So just be real. And on that note, understand how to use analytics effectively. They don't necessarily equal success, but, understand that they can make failure look acceptable. And then just last but not least here, quick wins and this short-term buzz can only count as long as you've got a sustained program that protects the brand. So having that balance, again, is critical moving forward. So finally, I'd just say to everybody, tech PR over the years has had it's had a bit of a mixed rap, to be honest. I mean, did I enjoy going down the pub when I was, 21, talking about the latest compact server? Probably didn't sound very glamorous at the time, doesn't sound very glamorous now. But it is truly an exciting area, and everybody that works in it should be really proud if you represent a technology brand, because ultimately you're representing a brand that powers the world. And I think if you do everything that we've just talked about, stay away from the marketing jargon, stay focused on actually what it does, then you'll be on a winner. And that is me.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Steph. Interesting food for thought, and I think really interesting to hear the B2B side for tech, because I know that can definitely be more challenging. So what I'll do now is I'll jump into a couple of questions that I have, but do feel free to add any questions that anyone here might have. You can just use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. So I'll start with Marc, quite a broad question.
Sure.
What do you think the biggest change has been over the last 12 months in the tech space?
I think we just saw on one of the slides, it's got to be AI really, which is the big buzzword at the moment. According to most technology companies, it's in absolutely everything. But it kind of, in a way, it is. And it is, like I said, it is a buzzword. But we're seeing it hugely in the home, especially the smart home stuff that's coming through now. And the way you can have a smart home for not too much money now is phenomenal, and because of what Amazon is doing and what Google is doing, and now Apple have got into the game of the HomePod. And that's the interesting thing actually about the HomePod and the Echo. They're speakers, but they really are the centerpiece of your smart home now. And I know that at the beginning, a few years ago, everyone thought it was going to be TVs were going to be the center of your smart home. That's not the way it is anymore. It is these small, relatively cheap speakers that you can talk to and ask them to do things. And then the little, the kind of add-ons you can do with that. So I use Hive, I've got an Alexa, I can plug them together. So just changing your lights. My little son always looks at the light bulb now because he thinks I'm going to change my voice. But it's that sort of thing, which is kind of day-to-day AI that we're seeing that is low cost, but hugely efficient and amazing to see. And I'm slightly plug Kaizo now, but we saw the Sphero drones, and that was a big thing for us on TechRadar. A lot of the kind of robot and has got AI within it, and it's amazing technology that's not just for kids, but is for kids, and huge amount of technology, and something I never thought I would see with my own eyes. We're in a really, really interesting and fun position at the moment when it comes to AI and technology from that point of view, from the grounded point of view.
Would you say that's something that is then reflected in your readership? Is it something your readers are keen to see more content about?
They are, and I think it's interesting. We've got it from two parts. So it's the what should I buy that's smart, and I think smart and AI kind of go hand in hand because AI is such a broad thing. But smart, what is smart? So whether it's a speaker or whatever, but also it's the tips and tricks side of things that we really see. So I know my parents got an Echo because I got one, and they were like, I went home for Christmas and they're like, that's brilliant, and they asked it about two things, and that was all they were using it for. I was like, there's a breadth of stuff you can do. They're like, oh, we don't really care, it's quite fun. But it's the tips and tricks, and it's the unearthing the gold that's within, I guess, for this stuff. So it's only a smart device if you know the smart stuff to do with it.
Yeah.
If you don't know the smart stuff, it's a dumb device.
Yeah. And so kind of passing it on to you, Steph, what I would be interested to hear about, I think people on the call would be interested to hear about, is if I think about AI being this huge pervasive topic and the amount of AI products that were released at CES, for example, how, as a PR professional, do you go about trying to pitch those AI stories to make sure they're gathering that interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably touched on it a little bit in the last part of the session, which is about talking about the application. So I think when it comes to when it's consumer led, people, do they really care that it's got AI tech in it? No, they probably quite like it. It's called smart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The BBC calls AI robots.
Yeah.
I think that says it all. But I think when it comes to talking about broader AI, sort of deeper tech, it's all about having a specific point of view and a specific perspective. In fact, we've done a piece of research work recently, talking to a wide variety of business national and tech journalists about this very issue. And really, they're bombarded with, everything's AI and everybody's saying the same, and it's really dull, and the coverage is coming because they are writing about the application of the product, but so it looks like everybody's talking about AI, and they are, but as far as that vision piece goes, I think that's still got to be defined and crafted for a lot of brands. So I think it's about finding your unique perspective and staying focused on the application.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of the other thing which you said, which jumped out to me, is some of those organizations maybe having a conservative attitude to comms.
Yeah.
Do you think some companies don't take enough risks when it comes to their communications?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's usually a good reason for not taking the risks.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not too much of a PR answer. I think it's really easy to get carried away, especially in what we do, with the potential and about claims. Okay, I think that you do have to stay grounded in reality, and you do have to be aware that you are often representing either these big giants or companies who are looking for funding, and they are very sensitive to what their investors are reading. So I think it's cool to have that, risky entrepreneurial program and as far as you can, but you need to keep, one foot there and one foot in the commercial and business reality of what makes them tick.
Finding the right balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. So we've got a question from Alistair that's come through. So kind of to both speakers, I'll ask you first, Mark. Are there any particular organizations that you think have done a really good job at building their brand through earned media in the past few years?
That is a good question. Let me think.
I'm just flipping your Kaizo client list.
Yeah, exactly. We have a good relationship with most of the big brands, as it were. I think if you're looking at really big brands, obviously you look from one side of things where you've got Apple, who are very close in how they deal with the media. If you're in that sphere, fantastic. If you're not, then you have to figure out ways of getting in. Then you've got more open brands. So we do a lot of work with Google. They seem to open up quite a lot with their stuff. Facebook were open. They're not as open as much anymore, but they do like to kind of tell us things that are going on. We have huge amount of respect for a lot of the smartphone manufacturers. We have really good ins with the smartphone. I think TechRadar at the beginning was known as a good place for phone reviews, and that's really, really helped develop over the years. So whether that's Google or the Pixel phone, but the kind of the burgeoning newer upstarts, they're not that upstarty anymore, but like Huawei and Honor and people like that, we're starting to get really good ins with them because we're understanding how they develop this technology, and they give us the exclusives or the insight that we really need to build our idea of what that brand is, and not just what their idea of what that brand is as well. So we are seeing it, but we're seeing it from like I said, it could be the biggest company like Amazon. We're seeing huge brand growth from them purely from their products that they create. Yeah. And then they had a bit of a trip up with the Amazon Fire Phone, which was one of their first kind of products, but they didn't let that stop them creating these echoes and stuff, which are now in pretty much every single home. Which is crazy. We never thought that would be the journey for something like Amazon. So no matter what the brand is, you can divert and you can switch and change your ways, as it were. And then you'll see good growth from what we're writing about.
Yeah. And how about yourself, Steph? Anyone that jumps out?
I mean, Amazon's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the point about its business performance and actually what a company offers. Because Amazon has an interesting brand because there's quite a lot of negativity around, the domination, everything from the domination through to, the working practices. And yet it is literally in every home, in one way, shape or another. It's everywhere. And it's kind of the brand has kind of survived that. And I think through the access and convenience and everything that it delivers. But I would say, apart from that, I think the security providers and vendors have done a good job because they're often in quite a difficult space. Because they're the guys who are having to say, whoa, hang on a minute, without saying, whoa, hang on a minute, don't embrace all this new technology. So I think it's often a fine line. And if you look at the likes of Avast, for example, the breadth of what they're talking about from, coaching SMBs through to talking about child online safety is really broad. And I think bringing sometimes quite complex technology messaging on such an important issue right to putting it at the heart of a family to do that well. I think a lot of them have done very well on that front.
Definitely. So I'll do a couple quick fire questions because I'm sure some people will want something else to this. So Mark, what are the kind of big stories that you're working on at the moment?
Well, I fly out to Barcelona on Saturday for MWC, so the big Mobile Congress conference. So it's all about mobile phones here on in for the next week or so. So rumours abound about a new Galaxy S9 and Sony phones and other such. So that'll be really, really exciting. But further on, obviously, we're looking forward to iOS 12 for Apple. I think that's really going to change the game from what they do as an operating system, really, especially when it comes to things like HomePod and smart home automation. There's some big stuff in there. And the AR stuff as well that they're doing. AR seems to be getting bigger and bigger from everybody's point of view. Yeah. So I expect to see quite a lot of that MWC because the whole point of AR is either using glasses or a tablet or a phone. Yeah. So, but for us, it's interesting. We were talking about AR 10 years ago on TechRadar with some, I think it was Blipper, some apps that did it and still around actually. So it's interesting that wave has come back again. And this new technology called AR. It's like, well, it's not new because Apple's only created it. It has been around for a while. But having the big companies really embrace it does mean that it might actually go somewhere. We're still interested in virtual reality and things like that. Wearables has decreased slightly in what people want. Again, I think that's because some of the big players are coming and just dominating the market as it was. But I do still think that people like the idea of a wearable. They just don't understand quite what they're using it for. If you're not using it day to day, then it gets chucked in a drawer like some technology. But yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what the new phones offer. You always get some interesting new, fun, exciting technology that comes from the phone. Seems to be the center of the kind of the new stuff that's coming through. So
And then finally for yourself, Steph, one of the things that a lot of my clients will ask me about is moving outside of just tech content into the kind of mainstream media with their tech coverage. So what's your kind of top tip to help make that transition?
There's two really. I mean, number one, if you're in a position, understand what a proper business story is. Don't go to a business writer or a national and say, we've got this really cool technology, that's not going to cut it. And that's a different pitch and a different angle, but understand the difference between that and pitching a tech writer. I think in terms of getting national technology press, that's got to be, again, really interesting case studies, customers, exclusives, the right level of spokespeople as well, and just making it real. I think that FT's got and a lot of the nationals got a reading age of 12, I think. So don't ditch these acronyms. They don't care. They don't care.
I think what we've seen with TechRadar actually is the rise of technology is being so mainstream now. It's ridiculous that we have seen the Telegraph and others come into our sphere quite heavily.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and that is the rise of us in popularity. I'd love to say it's all down to us, but it is down to the popularity of technology growing and growing.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that with mainstream media. And I'm hoping, obviously not from the PR point of view, but I'm hoping that it's a little bit easier to pitch these bigger ideas, because most journalists will understand parts of it, but then they've got to pitch that to their readers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you very much both for joining us today. I hope it was a useful discussion for everyone on the phone. Do keep an eye out for the next Cision webinar on Gorkana.com. In March, we'll be looking at the skills you need to advance your PR career and how employers can make the most out of their new starters. So thanks again to both Marc and Steph for sharing their insights with us today. And thanks for everyone who joined us and sent in questions for our speakers. We hope you can join us again next time. Thank you very much.